Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the World of Sasquatch. We promised that we would get you more of these episodes in this particular franchise, and this has actually been very lucrative. The forest people have been very supporting of this, but the dogmen, on the other hand, have not. So that would probably be more into the topic of today about some of the energies. It's more of a gigantic energy report in its own right. But even if the force people want to deliver these, yeah, go for it. So today's episode is being recorded before Halloween. It is 10/28/23. You probably won't see it until maybe around Thanksgiving period when you're seeing this. So this is where we have to open the circle to true benevolence with no conflicting agendas. So, Joanna, if you want to do the law of one.
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. I pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved one, to let healing energies in. Let them love you, let them nourish you, let them bring you to your highest good. I ask now for benevolence with no conflicting agendas to come in, to be with us now. I bless the Sasquatch. I bless their friends and family, and hope for healing energies as well. It is an interesting time that we are living in. Energies all over the place. As of this recording, getting close to Halloween, the veil is thinning. The energies are out there and getting chaotic. And right now, during this recording, it has been a full moon. So a lot of things going on and a lot of different conflicting energies. We wish for healing. We wish for happiness and joy to everyone that is there. We wish for this conversation to be able to be had in a way that uplifts and it's informative to everyone out there, and blessings to everyone. So with that, we say so be it.
And so be it, so it is. So yeah, even though this is being recorded before Halloween, these energies seem to fluctuate not only through the Samhain or Samhain time frame, but into the holiday season. So yes, I know, yes, and you're thinking by the time people see this, it's still going to be the same way. Okay, dying back and rebuilding and refluctuating. Okay, so uh, this is where we're going with this before we get to our guest, the energies. This is something you brought up, Joanna, about some of these energies that are just causing people to be very confused and hateful, either direction. I've noticed severe confusion when you're looking at something simple and grounded. Like, say, I'll just use more of a generalization. Like, if you were looking at a particular shape or a particular object, or even a particular concept, like if you're listening to something like Freud would say, if a cigar, sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. If somebody's speaking, in a particular task, a particular teaching, or something like that, and somebody wants to find always a higher meaning in something, it's not always applying. Sometimes it is what it is. When you hit something that's very simple and grounded like that, somebody that's always been taught that there's always higher meanings in something, or convoluted meanings in something, which there are when you're looking at symbols of the cabal or you're looking at meanings and disclosure in the media. Yes, this applies. There's symbolism everywhere. When you're doing something simply, people that have been taught this can't reground always and break out of this. And it is, when they're looking at something simple or trying to put a simple thought together, they get severely confused, or it goes the other way where they get severely hateful and go into a primal mindset. Or it can be a mixture of the two. Or if people that have gotten to a certain frequency that are observing all of this get severely frustrated and mad and hateful at those that are confused, or those that are hateful, and now you have this schism. This isn't necessarily just a generalization about a time of year. This seems to have been happening all year. Also the dummening field, we call it the dummening, that's happening. Kind of like the happening, but it's dummening. And this is where I got that particular name from. So this is something that I believe they want to focus on. Also, a severe amount of judgment that is coming towards people. Friend of ours, in a session were talking about this. Other forces were coming in saying, "Watch the judgment, watch the ego, watch the watch the aiming at those that are confused." And if people are seeing this geometric shape, this is a shadow of my laptop, where it looks like I'm pale here and tan here. So there's
not a crazy filter.
no, it's not a crazy filter like we had that beard and mustache that time on our talk with me and Joanna. It wasn't like that stupid beta filter that was on there that time. No, this is a reflection off of a bus or a van or truck or something off this way, and it's doing this weird geometric thing on my face. So it's not a filter for anybody who's watching. You can see the shadow behind me here. So I just thought that was kind of weird and creepy. But it also characterizes some of the energies where things are being partitioned off too. So it's really weird. Like I had a geometric tattoo of some kind, or got tanned wrong or something. So where like a book laid on me and I laid in the sun too long. But anyway, I just thought that was really weird. So it would have been worse with my glasses on. So I just thought that was really funny. So before we bring in this particular forest person, if you want to speak to them.
It's a very, I think, I've been, trying to be a bit reflectful of what are all of the pieces of the bigger pictures that are going on here, with individual growth, with individual healing, with, and then collective growth and collective healing. I think it's a very interesting. I've heard, multiple conversations, in these different areas. And so, it's nice to have the Sasquatch here to ask some specific questions. I think some of the conversations that we've had before have been, again, as your face, partitioned.
And I'm being blinded by the light here, so I'm having to lean into the shadow.
Right, are kind of partitioned to talk about one piece of the pie. Like maybe we're going to spend today talking about what it means to try and do ancestral healing, or healing of the soul group, or healing that will go back, again, not, to your higher soul, and how important the avatar is in that process. Those are, very specific aspects, but we're talking about having that go on at the same time of trying to decide in the world you're living in, what do you want and what is your experience that you want to be. All of these pieces are going on at the same time. I do feel that it's happening at a faster pace than it has, which again, I was told one time that by the end of all of this, there would be basically so much confusion. You wouldn't know which way to turn. And I don't know that if this is, let's say, a symbolized peak moment of that is happening in people's lives, and don't know that it isn't important to go through the confusion of all of it, because again, the goal is to try and figure out through all of this, who am I? What do I want as a soul experience? I'm sure everybody, whether they realize it or not, wants to heal wounds and wants to heal things that may have needs starting to have healing in their larger self, but also as an individual, and if you're with a collective soul family, to start to heal wounds within a soul family and want things to go on there. And then being just a citizen of this earth, to want to look around and want to see healing that starts to be done, and reconciliations, because I do believe the collective in general wants to go into, again, more of a unity of respect, and that allows for individualized cultures and civilizations, with an agreement of what does the baseline of that look for. Like we said, no, it does not mean abuse. It does not mean whatever's okay. What are the baselines? But then, representing yourself and your belief systems in your own culture, what's wrong with that? Really nothing. But there has to be a point of the collective desire let's say, for unity instead of the need to push your belief systems onto somebody else, which usually leads to, let's just say, war, hate, homicidal tendencies, genocidal tendencies, all of these things that are now conflicting. So some of the questions that I have are related to, is there, of course, the individual issues going on, but then is there actually a collective going on? Because again, there are points of time in history where maybe the collective is going to experience war.
Yeah, and also there is a drive to make people think there's a mass awakening coming, coming due or something like that. Where of course you have to go through a confusion to hit enlightenment, but a lot of people are going through this, and the AI is trying to get people think there's going to be on a mass level, where it's more of on an individualized level, where people are mantling good aspects of their oversoul and their avatar.
Well, again, and again, with that pressure of somebody who doesn't want you to co-create effectively for yourself, they want you to co-create for their agenda, realizing all of that, and then basically saying, to attain balance of understanding. So, curiosities I have is, what percentage of people are actually on this earth that may have been in a warlike state before, but in order to heal that and to have a better understanding, instead of choosing war, you're going to choose not to go to war. You're going to choose a different path to understanding and reconciliation and a unity. So it is interesting because people have had their own spins on how that balancing of experience and healing of experience occurs. It is a curiosity. Are there a ton of people, for example, here, that were here at World War I? And are they here now to potentially choose and to change that and to heal that warlike warrior inside and within the soul grouping to a different methodology of experience? Because you certainly already experienced the warlike tendencies, but then again, there are certainly the forces that are there that, again, if that is true, I'm throwing it on the table for conversation today, because I am curious what's being said and thought about that by other groups and the Sasquatch and others out there. If something is like that true, the question becomes, I would consider going to war and doing everything like that as kind of going down the toilet a little bit. And so, we're circling the rim. Are we going to choose to go back down the toilet in this sort of experience, or choose a different experience that is more in alignment, hopefully, with who you say you are now? Because, the goal again could be a mass amount of people that are here that were involved in war somehow in a different time that now choose a different path. But there is the pressure. There is what I call the dogs of war. Those that actually, I wish I could say they cared about human life, but no, they care about the profits that they can make within the war machine, who are egging it on. Also, again, there is a greater control if they can keep you circling the toilet and flushing yourself every now and then versus coming out of it, because then they lose, let's say, control of the collective consciousness. Will, hopefully stop co-creating for their agenda and co-creating for a bigger, broader, new experience that they want to experience, and then to bring it out. Now, does that mean that everyone's at that place energetically to, let's say, heal and burst from that? No, there are people here that are here and will experience war, be it on a smaller scale, right? Skirmishes, be it on maybe a little bit. And it's an interesting concept with that, because, we've spoken about this before, about becoming the epitome of something, about truly, we've talked about it, and it can kind of seen as it's not a joke, but jokingly, I am the epitome of an addiction, right? So if you've become the epitome of an addiction and truly embrace that as the identity of who you are, and I'm not mean second guessing, I mean really identify and lock that in, there is no more growth. And it seems to be that circling constantly, that, I don't know, because I'm not saying black holes are bad, but in this instance, that black hole gravity that just sits and spins and doesn't do anything anymore, that it seems to be on a larger universal, some would say source level, that's pulled out of the picture, because what else is anybody learning from it? So it's an interesting dynamic, because is some of that actually going on? Are people themselves, in their soul and their experience and their avatar, now becoming the epitome of hatred and of only a small level of identity that is allowed, and everything else is unacceptable? And does that mean that, there are humans now that are embracing that that they are themselves becoming the epitome of what it's like to be in so much hate? Now I can see, I can see how that type of energy can get very confusing to very people. I don't know if some of that frequency, let's just say, is being streamed through, TVs, being streamed through the internet, being streamed through your phones, to try and get that primal stuff up. But what happens? Are there humans now that are so locked into that? The only way that's going to happen is if the collective says no, and they want different energies to arise. That is going to cause this not to be able to exist within it anymore.
And also, I found out in another variation, it doesn't always have to do with good going into more of a ascended mindset or master mindset, or higher, lower, faster, slower. Sometimes it does, but it doesn't always have to do whether you're good or not. Sometimes it has to do whether you're susceptible or not, whether you get hit or not. Goodness, yes, that's the way to go. But at the same time, I've seen very good people get the most raking over the coals, and that they become the most controlled in what we call like a meat puppet. I've seen that time and again, where it had also nothing to do whether you were cognizant of the existence of something. I know whether when you see something, you change it or cancel it out. But at the same time, that's a multiversal rule. But in this case, sometimes it doesn't always have to do whether something is noticed. It may change a little bit. It's whether you want it or act on this or change it in some fashion, and also grow an immunity to certain things. Like I had certain AI influences that I grew immunities to over a period of time, like building against a virus, essentially. That's essentially where that's at. It's on that fundamental level. Then you can take it in a direction, say, I don't want to be this, I want to be that. Then you can change it, whether it's a hateful or happier mindset. But you got to recognize that even cognizance of it doesn't completely change it. You have to really work on that, and also know that your human form has to form an immunity as well to it. And that's part of the mantling, where you take the better parts of an oversoul, which could also have some infections somewhere. And we've talked about this in our talks with me and Joanna as well in the past, which are coming back as well. And then the mantling the better aspects of the avatar and grounding in the I am presence here. People think it's about going into ascension and fusing back with source creator. No, that is soul harvesting garbage. That was what that was. That started with the Jesus story and all that other stuff. What that is, it's a grounding. That's why you have to remain grounded. And doing this grounding, you're not susceptible to that confusion field after a while. And then eventually you start to get into a different frequency, and you actually can be an observer on the outside of this, watching this confusion, like watching a shark feeding frenzy, or watching in the ocean, or watching silt being kicked up on the bottom of a lake. That's what it kind of reminds me of, what I'm seeing a lot. So yeah, this is what I've run into myself.
And so, it's good to have this conversation. Everyone will say, well, what does this have to do with Sasquatch? Well, the interesting thing is, again, they are so close to our frequency, and they themselves have had conversations with us about how these energies are affecting their own and affecting their children. I find the children part an interesting conversation as well, because again, you can, I know in the United States, I possibly elsewhere, when I say children, I just want you to know that it truly is my understanding. It takes at least to around 25 for your brain to fully form. So when I say children, I do mean even those of college age, where they're not fully, completely developed. And these energies that have been being pumped to that whole generation, pretty effectively, it seems to me, from internet, from the phones, from the whatever, and the more so than generations before. How has that affected those younger ones, and how susceptible are they? Now, I do believe, just like what you're saying, that all souls that come in at all ages are here fine-tuning themselves, gaining, auditing themselves, defeating the viruses, let's say healing the viruses in the
within
DNA,
the genetic, yeah.
And going through, and maybe some of going through some of this is about developing those things.
And also, like what we saw in that Teal Swan conversation, where you change the behavior, the line was focused on, and it reverses it and heals it in all directions. I happen to agree with that, and I've said this for years.
Oh yeah, you've said this. It's almost like, a healing, within, if you think about a soul family group, and we've talked about this before, like boom, this little spark, and it just goes in all different directions, and it touches every single member of the soul family. So these little bursts of healing that burst out and go in all directions and touch all of these different souls. It's needed, and certain members of the soul family come in just to be that spark, to be that little minor explosion of healing that is going to revert back to all of its members, meaning that it has nothing to do with whether or not you or yourselves are going to have any heirs. It's not about that. It's about the healing to the larger soul family group, and you do make a difference there. So sometimes people think, well, my line is dying. No, it is not, because your perspective of how all of this works is not in full understanding of really what the soul family and the healings that need to happen there. So you shouldn't think that way if you feel, well, I have no one to pass anything to. It doesn't even work like that. So don't think that way, because it's not true. But I wanted to, include the Sasquatch because of the simple fact that they are exposed to all of these energies too. They are having difficulties at times, especially with some of the younger ones, because of the saturation of some of these energies and what they're exposed to. And again, I believe knowledge is power, to understand how all of this is affecting, with the clear understanding that the goal is to make sure within it all, and pushing back what isn't you, who are you, and what is you want for the future, what is it that you want to see, and to start acting on that. Now, many people, since we're seeing things globally happening in real time that we've never been able to see before, this technology in the last 20 years has allowed more to come into you. It is coming in raw. It is coming in with raw emotions. It is coming in. It's coming into your children. It's coming in. And so it seems like you would think the world is ending, because you're getting so much more information than you've ever had before. So tease that out, because I hate to say it, but, killing, maiming, cruelty, torture, abuse, that's been going on forever. To think that it's only going on now, and this is maybe the worst moment ever, is not necessarily true. But you're seeing more into your life than you've ever seen before happening. So I can certainly respect how it feels that way. But the understanding is, how do I then present myself and my intention? And we always say, start where you are. Make sure, again, if you say you're a kind person and you respect people, well, then be kind and be respectful to those around you. Do not let the energies that are trying to change you to be more primal, don't let them in. Say, no, I believe. And if you believe in unity, and if you believe in things, then say hi to everybody. Say hi to everybody in the same energy. Make sure that you are presenting yourself in the way that you say you are and you want it to be. That is how these changes actually then occur.
Yeah, it's just like that scene in Kingsman where they get all primal because the technology's been flipped on. That's the binary network garbage and AI garbage at work. That is contributing most definitely. That is the one of the primary things that is contributing to this confusion field. And people like, well, people also have been saying that when you're uncomfortable, you're growing. When you're getting confusion, that's the point of enlightenment. Yes, there is a truth to that, but there's also, they're saying the outside energies are causing chaos and confusion. That is that's true, but it's the AI field that's doing a lot of this. And that's an unpopular response given to what some insiders have said in the past, like, oh, this is a form of evolving humanity in a mass way. That's not happening that way. And even the forest people are saying, no, we are being harmed by this stuff too. And I find this very fascinating that now groups are coming in and not necessarily poo-pooing the old stuff because there's value in the older information, but they're adding an update on this information that some of these other channelers, and you've seen us talk about like the GF narrative and the ascension narrative, and you've seen all of these things, that now the information is morphing and changing and going off on in a place that people are severely uncomfortable with. And in that uncomfortableness, they're either backtracking and staying in the confusion and in the primalness, or they're evolving past this. And I'm not saying stupid, smart, or intelligent and not intelligent, or awake, unawake. They say that saying that is wrong too. It's just susceptible, not susceptible, or people that want to stay in their plateau and do not, and souls that do and do not. And it's not a have and have not. Some people have confused it when I've said things like that as a have and have not. Or, oh, we're going to evolve and be on our own timeline. Yes, those things happen, and you have fluctuations in the timeline as well. But is it you're going to be on a different planet because, oh, you're not going through the Great Awakening, or you're not awakening fast enough, so you're not staying here? No, that is not true. Timeline fluctuations. Yes, there is a truth to that, but there's also changing perspectives and perceptions. And there's no such thing as going into a 5D type of situation, even though the energies are expanding. And from where we are now in our temporal energy, going back to an earlier period, we would seem like we were really fast moving compared to years past. So there is a truth to it, but there's also a ton of misnomers in there that would be more of an episode about the multiverse or something like that, and we have not done yet. But we will get to that at some point. But with this, so that would be more lifting or GIC territory. But this is where I'm thinking we can bring in our guest. He is a forest person that I recently encountered in a session that recently had a human form. That's as far as I'm going to take that conversation. But his name is Ricello. And it may, people have joked it sounds Italian, stuff like that. But he's actually from an area of England that is in a local forest area. It's in between. He travels in between Luton and London, and further south as well. And there's a clan that migrates from northern England to southern England that passes through some of these areas. And he has come here today. Him and I had to resolve some energies and stuff like that ourselves in another session. And now he's at a spot, or an audit had to take place. There's a spot where he can actually safely channel. And he's using, what's interesting, he was using the communication arc, but he's actually here. There's a difference between them using the arc to communicate and actually being on the property. Just like with some of the bad guys, you may have heard in some of the past GICs, where Kublai Khan was saying they are doing this because they are standing there. He was being facetious, but at the same time, there's a truth there. Where if you believe they're there, or if you know they're there. The Sasquatch could be standing near you, and you would never know. You hear the whoops, or you hear the yelps and stuff like that. They could be right next to you, literally next to you, and they're just ventriloquisting in a different direction too. In this case, he's physically here. Which I'm very shocked we haven't heard taps or knocks or something like that, or rocks the house, which more likely here in the next few minutes we probably will. He just said, "Don't get me to do shit," is what he said. Okay. He's also a smart ass too. So, all right. No, seriously, don't tell me to do shit. Okay, all right. Oh, and then your people consider that sometimes rude when people are wanting you to do performances and stuff like that for the camera. Absolutely. All right. Okay. You're going to be that way. Okay. All right. Oh, you find that funny. Okay. All right. Oh, man. Dry mouth. Mm. A lot of energy flying around here. So, it's been all kicked up here. So, okay. Ricello. Um, through the crystal. Yes, I'm aware of your procedure. Okay. All right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, this seems to be the conversation of the day, the non-judgment, or when people hit a stage where the oppression is so great and the energies have become so oppressive that they fall into the primal, or they fall into uh, the mind control in such a way, not just because of susceptibility or lack of cognizance, but the uh, flow that has been pushed upon them, so much so that staying in the human form is not even an option anymore at that stage. And that is not a moment of cowardice or a moment to be standing in judgment. That is a moment where they've gotten to a stage where he likes to say, where Humpty Dumpty could not be put back together again, all the king's horses, all the king's men. And that is an accuracy right there. There's a lot of this Humpty Dumpty stage going about, especially after your current all the 2020 madness, where people that have gone through either the viral thing or the V side of things, I will make sure that you don't get pegged, even though this is a Rumble conversation. You know all what you were being told at this stage, even with the shedding that is going around with the V, ironically labeled V because of the reptilian and Orion uh, references within that show and movies they're in, and scripting this uh, is actually contributing to the judgment. Yes, I will admit there is some stupid going around, but at this stage, the what you call the one trick poniness of basically labeling some people awake and asleep. When you label a whole population of people of stupid and dumb, are you not then creating the very unawakeness that you claim to be abhorrent to? Yes, there is just some naturally stupid. I will admit there are some things that you just cannot get past the confusion. People not seeing things clearly, or what he likes to say, the Fisher Price level of evolutionary development. Yes, which I personally found humorous, but both human existence and this, which we do understand this, hopefully completely. But this seed of lack of understanding can then morph into the lack of heart space or a heart of stone. This is not the place to be, but it's also not completely wearing the heart on the sleeve, whereas then you're entangling. This is where my human self was, and therefore became susceptible. Yes, we always say we walk in heart space, but you have to have mind and heart as one. That is critical thinking and also intuition. When is it time to recuperate and rest the energies? When is it time to wait a moment and then get into, yeah, and then learn how to wash your footsteps, as it were. This is crucial. And also, this is why he does not like to remain open all the time for this very reason. My human brain at the time was too open, was having a lot of signals. I was here to assess some of these as a susceptibility range for my own people. You call us the forest people and Sasquatch people. Different tribes have different names, mind you, but the generalization of forest people and Sasquatch is just fine with myself. Just like you have different tribes of natives and such and people around the world. Yes, you will say human, fine. Yes, this is acceptable to us. That's about the likeness of it. But I was here to assess that particular susceptibility. So it was not a matter of, say, cowardice to not protect oneself, even though sometimes, yeah, okay. But in this, my mission was primarily to figure out different levels of susceptibility. That's a generalization of my mission. I cannot say all that I came in to do, even though it's everything everywhere all at once. He was seeing originally human self and this version of me. Yes, you can say literally that I was learning from this experience and knowing that once that reunification, or what humans would perceive as a reunification to the oversoul, when in fact it's all happening at the same time, from a human perspective, it would look like a reabsorption or a reallocation, when in fact it is all inclusive and taking place right now. There is really no higher self or lower or all in between. Yes, you can say oversoul because of the multiverse, but it is not, it is all happening at the same time. So is the multiverse. You're just perceiving your reality, because when with that signal, when you see it, it's when it's being observed, it stops moving, just like you are perceiving your reality. You are perceiving the one you are grounded in because of the temporal and multiversal quantum frequency you are in. But if you were to travel the multiverse, this is why they always had the incursion thing, because in Marvel, because of the frequency, then you are treading in a different frequency layer, and it is clashing. You are then grounded and perceiving it within your own perspective. Therefore, it wouldn't be as sensitive as in the movie, or even in the Flash, where it changed so quickly like that. However, there would be a change either to yourself or the surrounding environment. So therefore, the incursion thing was correct. This is why you are only seeing your current reality. This is as far with the multiverse conversation as I will go. But in regards to what you are currently experiencing within this grounded reality, the hatefulness and the confusion are going hand in hand. And yes, the AI is responsible for this. And like any virus, including your current C or V, you can gain immunities, even though it is part machine and part biological. Even the black goo, you can gain an immunity too. These are things that I have studied at length. I into the magical aspects and what you perceive as magical aspects, some technological, some scientific, and the energetic all at once in this respect. You could say that that was my field. I had to come in as an ultra sensitive to gauge this properly to what people were experiencing. The insanity would not stop for myself in this life because of that reason. I know this benefits the oversoul, and I know this may seem like, how can I put this? An unfairness to the avatar, which it is, but it is also all inclusive in one being. He himself is going through a similar thing with his oversoul library, but there is a way you say, okay, enough is enough here, and then reallocate and redistribute. It is not all inclusive to the same mission. There are many thousands and thousands of variations where this can play out. And it is not so hardcore to the original purpose by which the oversoul entered this reality to begin with. Like your Jeffrey Hunter was saying, he didn't get to complete the entire list of things, and that is true. But you can refine it to the bullet points, and you don't have to be so entrenched and suffer. You can literally change these things. I needed it to be refined to a certain specific set of parameters, but that is myself. So I can go into questions if you like.
Well, I find it interesting, just the conversation, because it means, again, you're talking about the larger totality of yourself, different avatars coming in for different reasons. Obviously, you're here with us right now as a forest person, but you've also at the same time been in this environment as, you know, a human being as well. And the concept of at times avatars coming in to what would appear to be maybe a very harsh, you know, as you're saying, sensitive to the energies that are going on, to try and gauge better how it affects and what are the dynamics of it, to understand it better. Meaning that if you had that experience, pretty much every single, I don't want to say one of us, but what I'm saying is that every single greater soul who has multiple avatars going on at the same time is going to do the same, is going to sometimes bring in and have avatars to experience something that would, in a sense, look mean or cruel or harsh.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen to provide the information.
It may be in this reality or another one or
right.
a timeline. You that just happened to the roll of the dice ended up on this one. Yes.
And again, when we have said we've done it all, we've experienced it all. I find it interesting to give perspective, and what is your perspective and understanding as to why those events, why that avatar's experience, again, be it in an experience here or somewhere else, why it is felt that the oversoul needs to be able to gauge what's going on. And again, in the sense of everlasting, never dying, never whatever, how do I have an experience, whatever, in the larger sense of the, you know, greatness, it's not considered cruel to do that. It's not considered that way.
But yes, it does have that look. But at the same time, the avatar can change these things. This is also helpful because of the nature of the multiverse. As you've been seeing, like in your Loki and your Marvel Cinematic Universe, it does shove off to a Junt or a variant or some. This is incredibly accurate the way this operates, I must say. But it will shove off to different timelines in that respect. I will not name insiders or anything, but some insiders have talked about this. It's best you don't use, and I must say this with absolute reaffirmation in this way. Do not use the names of other insiders at this time. This will provide more of an anchor to the confusion, even though you're trying to compare data. There are some things you can get away with. Certain information shows things of that nature. Different, individualized paths, individualized timelines, individualized missions. Yes, cross and compare the information, but at this time, our people are also, my people are also saying this as a generalization. Yes, contrast, compare information, but at the same time, those particular people are, how can I put this in a kind way, on a path to collision.
So I'm going to go a little further, because if people, again, many people are discovering and hearing conversations, but if you go back, and again, we've been doing this publicly, making the information out there since January of 2017. One of the shows that we did in the very beginning discussed the fact of how important it was to discern the message and kind of leave the messenger alone. Mm-hmm. And so you're reiterating that. From what I can gather, you're reiterating that right now, that what's important is to listen to what's being brought through. We've said that many people, no one's getting it all right. And people,
you can mention even YouTube channels at certain stages. It's the path of kindly saying certain individuals out there.
And it's important to know that, because what we said before in some of that recording is that there are plenty of people who have no idea what they are really doing and experiencing.
Yes, because then when you name, there's power in the name you see, mm-hmm. and you latch on to that particular narrative without even you realizing it at times. Yes, this can be wiped, though that footprint can be wiped clean within an instant because of cognition of it. But why rub the rug constantly in the wrong way just to wipe the footprint clean, or to clean your feet on the mat. It
Right.
makes no sense.
Exactly. So we said, as well as you have just said again, that it is so important to just listen to the information. Humans have a tendency, the savior tendency, the right person tendency, the white hat tendency, the whatever, to want to latch on something, and good information will come through, but then a skewing can occur that happens, and you have so invested yourself into the person that you allow for this other information and take it as sacrosanct, even if you inside could feel kind of funny about the information.
You may be funny, feel funny about the person and not the information, and the information can be perfectly sound.
Correct. So it's about the information coming through, and I'm glad you brought that up, because again, we've been doing this for so long, and some of that basics, especially now, is so important. Listen to what's being said, really listen, and then use those discernment skills, okay, for what is good for you now, and again, what you want to potentially let go of that doesn't serve you right now. That is how you maneuver yourself through these situations. Do not give allegiance to a particular, person delivering it.
It's good to have solidarity for people you feel are part of the pack or soul family. Yes, as we all view ourselves. But at the same time, like what your Doctor Who says, you're creating an established timeline of events. Say, for instance, and I will use this as an example, yes, it is great that you're calling out the GF narrative. Absolutely, the Lemurians had an absolute grievance in that area with an episode you've already published, of the lifting. Absolutely, certain things need to be called out, but at the same time, once they have been, remember how many people view a particular thing. Times one by 1,000, by even 1,000,000. And yes, there are people viewing this material in those numbers, which you are not seeing. Both galactic, our people, and human alike, mixing all of it as one, all in between. Also, think of the fact that, yes, you've called this thing out. You have now established that there are certain people that have been lied to, or have a bit of truth in their words. Great. But to repeat those names in the power of those names, not always the smartest thing, because then you're rubbing salt in the wound at that point. Therefore, you have created a for and against. You have created a person that now has to defend their position, and now you are defending your own. This creates a schism. This creates a prize fight type mentality. This creates a focus on the fight, like a gladiatorial arena after a while. This is why he has had so many come to him and asking questions about particular groups, particular people, particular places, which is fine to establish that there were certain connections, like basically saying certain religions have their darker anchors. From even your Christianity to your Scientology to your Islam to your Judaism, even some of the pagan ones. Yes, establishing all of this. But once you have established this, now you have created that timeline of speak. And now people have to ponder that timeline of speak, even though you haven't really shifted timelines in that way. Yes, it is basically a metaphoric and also literal at times for creating that schism, or like in how Loki showed it as literal, creating branches. You have now created and established, or like you're Back to the Future creating a schism. You have now established those chain of events, which is also what you two are here to do. But when you constantly are saying that this part of this person's information is wrong and this is correct, you then at that point have created a for and against and a schism, a crack. You have now then, to put it kindly, castrated the purpose of the informing to begin with.
Which I think, again, thank you. I think this is very important to understand. And again, you have to learn and leave it up to yourself to learn good discernment skills. Now, even if you talk about, again, a greater unity, those skills are going to be important because to try and have many people with many ways and many thoughts, and how do you bring everybody together? You're not going to be able to do it if you're constantly yelling, but you're wrong here, but you're wrong there, but you're wrong there, but you're wrong. You have to find that different path to be able to walk, to focus on those things that, again, that you agree upon, to have basic foundational belief systems, and then to allow for the exploration of whatever it is that your group or culture or whatever values and wishes to allow them well on that journey, as long as, again, the fundamentals are established and everyone is honoring those. Now, right now, obviously, and I believe you were speaking about it just a little bit ago, I had pondered, like I said, about, can a human being and the avatar get to the same place as what we talked about, the epitome of addiction folks? Can a human get there?
Yes, so most
definitely. That's showing.
Yes, you can de-evolve a line, very much like they show in your Elder Scrolls, where they have the mantling. They show that, which him and his friend Ryan have shown in episodes. And there's also, you have a white elven line and a de-evolved Falmer line. This is a real reality in the cryptid sense, where one hated so much those that had oppressed them. They had devolved, they had been blinded by their rivals. They had devolved into this hateful type of mindset, where one of their people that had not gone down this evolutionary schism had to go and try to retrain them back into a more sentient-esque type people. You can, if you remain in this, like what that old phrase or paraphrase, you wear a mask long enough, does it not become you? This is essentially what does happen. Masks then also can become parts of that avatar, because you're training the mind, you're training the heart, you're training all these things to become this. And this is what the bad guys you labeled them as, your Kabbalists and all of them want. They want hearts of stone. They want also hearts that are too attaching as well. They want people to be divided within. They want people to take on the mantle of the mask in this way. They want people, like in your Legend of Zelda series, where you would put on the different masks and become the essence of those different people, or in your movie The Mask, where it was actually Loki's essence within the mask. This is essentially what is taking place. You are taking on that particular thought train. You are basically saying that frequency of that torsion field is the thing that you are over time. This is what they want. Your Kabbalists, your dark magicians, they all know this. They know this completely. This is why it is ignorant, and I will say this, of people saying that, oh, they don't understand what they're doing. They know exactly what they're doing, and they always have. They are not dumb. You are picking up on some of the dumb bottom feeders and such, and some of the bottom feeding vampiric entities and such out there. But there are some that also take that form, that are using the bodies of the humans, are using the bodies of some of those forms that they've captured from out in the galaxy and out in the dimensions, where they are physical bodies that can transfer to, and also insectoids trying to get the fake alien invasion thing going. And they are also trying to get people locked and always in a war-like readiness. They showed that in your Gene Roddenberry's Andromeda with the SI war, or not Andromeda, but that too, but also within your the Earth Final Conflict, where there was an SI war, where the aliens stopped and interfered with humans at that time to keep them in a warlike readiness, to where they didn't resolve their conflicts on their own. They wanted people in a warlike readiness so they could keep regurgitating. That's why the character of Liam said to the character of Da'an, your interference made it so we couldn't resolve this. Like some of your issues in the Middle East, for instance, invaded so many times by so many countries, they couldn't resolve those issues on their own. Therefore, they have sometimes a medieval-esque mentality in a modern day, because they were presented certain advancements quickly, but they were also hit with oppression too much, and that was more of a petri dish for that. Not dumping on people from that area of the world. This is just what's happened historically. So this is also what's happened to people that are in touch with the earth, like some of your natives. What did the government do? They introduced alcohol. They introduced reptilian addictions, things of that way, to cause a schism, so that you didn't get in touch with the earth anymore, or they didn't get in touch with the earth anymore. These are the schisms that are being created. So this is why when you've entered, even with you guys, a happier mindset, there's always this chain of events that take place to send you back down in the doldrums. This is what's taking place with people that are saying they don't have time because of children or because of circumstance, work, and life. They don't have time to be touching with self. And he always says, "Oh, I can't." He says, "Oh, I can't work